People are going to start lining up to look at her as if she were a monster, Nivea said.
And the Liberal Party will go to hell, Severo added, anticipating the damage to his political career that could be caused by having a bewitched child in the family.
Just then Nana shuffled in with her sandals flapping, in her frou-frou of starchy petticoats, to announce that a group of men were out in the courtyard unloading a dead man. And so they were. A 4-horse carriage had drawn up outside, occupying the whole first courtyard, trampling the camellias and getting manure all over the shiny cobblestones. All this amidst a whirlwind of dust, a pouring of horses, and the curses of suspicious men who were gesticulating against the evil eye. They had come to deliver the body of Uncle Marcos and all his possessions. A honey-voiced man, dressed in black, with a frock coat and a hat that was too big for him, was directing the tumult. He began a solemn speech, explaining the circumstances of the case, but was brutally interrupted by Nivea, who threw herself on the dusty coffin that held the remains of her dearest brother. She was shouting at them to lift the cover so she could see him with her own 2 eyes. She had buried him once before, which explained why she had room for doubt whether this time his death was real. Her shouts brought the servants streaming from the house, as well as all her children, who came as fast as they could when they heard their uncle's name echoing amidst the cries of mourning. It had been 2 years since Clara had last seen her Uncle Marcos, but she remembered him very well. His was the only perfectly clear image she retained from her whole childhood, and in order to describe him, she did not need to consult the daguerreotype in the drawing-room that showed him dressed as an explorer, leaning on an old-fashioned double-barrelled rifle, with his right foot on the neck of a Malaysian tiger, the same triumphant position in which she had seen the Virgin standing between plaster clouds and pallid angels at the main altar, 1 foot on the vanquished devil. All Clara had to do to see her uncle was close her eyes, and there he was, weather-beaten and thin, with a pirate's moustache, through which his strange shark-like smile peered out at her. It seemed impossible that he could be inside that long black box that was lying in the middle of the courtyard. Each time Uncle Marcos had visited his sister Nivea's home, he had stayed for several months, to the immense joy of his nieces and nephews, particularly Clara, causing a storm in which the sharp lines of domestic order blurred. The house became a clutter of trunks, of animals in jars of formaldehyde, of Indian lances and sailors' bundles. In every part of the house, people kept tripping over his equipment, and all sorts of unfamiliar animals appeared that had travelled from remote lands, only to meet their death beneath Nana's irate broom in the farthest corners of the house. Uncle Marcos's manners were those of a cannibal, as Severo put it. He spent the whole night making incomprehensible movements in the drawing-room. Later they turned out to be exercises designed to perfect the mind's control over the body and to improve digestion. He performed alchemy experiments in the kitchen, filling the house with fetid smoke and ruining pots and pans with solid substances that stuck to their bottoms and were impossible to remove. While the rest of the household tried to sleep, he dragged suitcases up and down the halls, practiced making strange high-pitched sounds on savage instruments, and taught Spanish to a parrot whose native language was an Amazonic dialect. During the day, he slept in a hammock that he had strung between two columns in the hall, wearing only a loincloth that put Severo in a terrible mood, but that Nivea forgave because Marcos had convinced her that it was the same costume in which Jesus of Nazareth had preached.